I wanna rock! I wanna rock! I want to rock! I wanna rock!
As the party rode toward Mount Gakis, a roc flew overhead carrying its meal, a live cow. The party contemplated feeding it amnesio, but regrettably, he was safely back at the stables in Vallaki. Shortly up the road, the party came across a campsite. Thankfully, due to the shrewd tracking skill of the party's resident ranger, Atto determined that this was the site of a bloody battle and violent struggle the night before. Conveniently, the trail of struggle and blood seemed to be leading the party along the path they were going anyway, so they continued onward. Eventually arriving at an icy causeway along a lake, the party heard a faint voice from the lake calling for help. Upon further inspection, there was a young boy desperately holding on to some ice, trying to avoid falling through into the lake. Thinking quickly, Mbappe cast command.
I command you to climb.
The boy yelled back that he appreciated the command, but he was already trying to do that. At that moment, the party noticed 4 wolves appear from the edges of the lake and began to make off towards the boy. Atto fired an arrow with a rope attached to it to try to give the boy something to pull onto, but his new arrow found another target instead, one of the legs of the wolves. So they hadn't saved the boy, but at least now they had a sled dog of sorts. Mbappe misty-stepped to the boy and pulled him up safely onto the ice. He instructed him to keep his hands and knees inside, and he curled the boy across the ice towards Atto and Giles. Unfortunately, on the unstable ice, he made it about 5 feet before cracking through the ice and falling in again. Mbappe figured he may as well just keep repeating this process as many times as would be necessary. Meanwhile, needing to get the wolves off their back, Giles decided to destroy water on the ice, but it didn't take. Giles sensed the party watching him expectantly, as if they expected his move to be more useful than that or something. Mbappe continued incrementally curling the young boy across the ice as the wolves quickly approached. Needing a fast solution, Giles decided maybe it was time to flush the wolves out of the equation, and he cast control water to create a vortex. 3 of the 4 wolves were instantly swallowed into the vortex, while 1 climbed to a nearby island. Fortunately, though the party had been captured in it too, Giles was able to redirect the flow enough to allow them to reach the lake's shore safely, where they gathered the boy and made it off quickly to their horses to find a safe location for shelter, away from the wolves. The party asked the boy what his name was, and what, pray tell, he was doing in the water. He informed the party that his name was Calder, and he was in the water hiding from the wolves. He mentioned that he was on a hunt with his mother when their camp was attacked by a wolf that looked like a wolf but wasn't a wolf. Calder clearly didn't want to join the party, so the party decided they would at least help him get home, and they continued along to the south, which Calder was at least pretty sure was the right way. As the party reached the foot of Mount Gakis and began to climb, they progressed along the road until they came to a headstone that said, "Beware of the fury of the mountain's daughters. Follow the dragon's gaze and remain on the path." Just beyond was a black stone obelisk, pointing in the direction of the next marker. The party kept following the markers until they arrived at a frozen waterfall, which Calder recognized as a landmark close to his home. Giles noticed a shrine nearby dedicated to the Ladies 3. Calder explained that the ladies of the mountain were worshipped by the mountain folk, his people. Long ago, Strahd had completely stamped out any worship of the 3 ladies, or so he believed. Calder directed the party to the shrine, which was nearby the entrance of his small village, down a stone pathway and then into a clearing, surrounded by mountain on all sides. Encountering a guard, the party inquired as to whether anyone was missing a boy, and the guard noted that the chief's son had recently returned. No sooner did he loudly declare that an imposing woman, Sigrid, emerged from the chieftain's tent. Her intense expression softened upon seeing her son. Though displeased at the report of the fate of her wife, she was happy that Calder had been returned. Not wanting to seem ungrateful, Sigrid asked the party what had brought them this far up Mount Gakis, to which they responded that they sought out the Amber Temple, though they weren't fully sure why or what to expect there. Sigrid recommended that they speak to the town elder Oromir, as he would surely have much to discuss if they should continue along that path. She took them over to speak with Oromir, from whom the party learned much about the Amber Temple. It was well known to these people, in fact. The tribe had a common practice for their eventual leaders to go in for 6 days and 6 nights and to survive. This proved their dedication to fighting corruption and evil. Incidentally, in fact, Helwa, the eldest daughter of Sigrid, had recently departed the village to go partake in the ritual. Oromir also gave the party some additional context to expand on Kaldur's earlier lore dump.
The first inhabitants of the land were typically roaming druids and berserker tribes. They were ruled by the Ladies Three, the goddesses of the land. The first inhabitants worshipped them, for they wielded powerful magic over the domains of the land, and brought good fortune to those who followed their ways. To all others, they were known simply as the Huntress, the Seeker, and the Weaver. For as long as they ruled the land, they acted as sovereigns, making their wills known by wielding powerful magic. When the Delmorians invaded, the first inhabitants fought bravely, but were driven up into the mountains. Many among them believed their loss was due to the will of the ladies. This became known as the second betrayal.
The party asked about the first betrayal, but Oromir said it wasn't in the book and to please hold all questions at this time.
Sometime later, Strahd van Zarovich conquered the land and was coronated. Some remaining first inhabitants attended, hoping to earn patronage and their safety. They brought him gifts, which piqued his interest.
At this point, Atto, growing bored, started flirting with Sigrid for a bit.
You know, Sigrid, Strahd has definitely taken much from us, both you and I. But I want you to know that I'm gonna help this town. Just let me know what I can do, and I'll do it for you.
Can I finish?
Oromir continued on.
The druids of the old guided Strahd to the sanctums of the Ladies Three. He stood in the sanctums and felt their primal magic. It was then he decided that in order to truly conquer the land, he must conquer the Ladies Three. He returned some time after to their sanctums, and twisted their magics to bend them to his will, binding their magic to him. And so became the land. All the while, the first inhabitants, desperate for a protector from further conquerings, allowed this to happen, and this became known as the third betrayal. Today, the ladies are lost to time and mist. Their power is bound by Strahd's desecrations. There are those who believe the lands can be rid of Strahd's taint.
The party giggled at the word taint. With Oromir's lore dump concluded, Sigrid invited the party to rest and eat for the night before making their way the following morning. The following morning, just before dawn, the party made final preparations to depart from the town. A young woman approached Mbappe with a gift of hand-knitted socks and winked at him. She said that she would give him her socks anytime. She said she would especially love to help him get out of the socks if the opportunity could ever arise. Mbappe suggested that they discuss this later when he came back. She looked at him with eyes suggesting that he could come on her back. Sigrid also warned the party to keep an eye out for Shusuva, the brutal beast who looks like a wolf but has the tail of a scorpion. Noting that it was likely the beast Kaldur had been talking about, the party decided that they would try to avoid it. Luckily, the party's collective memory was not greatly tested, as one of the first things they encountered was a cave whose entrance clearly showed signs of a struggle against some sort of beast. The party moved closer, tempted by a battle axe lodged in the wall beside the cave. Unfortunately, though the party had correctly deduced that this was indeed the home of the Shusuva, they did not deduce that they should be quiet or stealthy in any way. The beast leapt towards Giles and began to attack, tempted by the tasty morsels that had delivered themselves to its lair. As the beast leapt at Giles, Mbappe heroically slid down the rocks nearby the mouth of the cave, ignited his sun sword, and slashed at the beast. The beast responded by paralyzing Mbappe with its venomous attack. Unfortunately for it, however, the odds were too stacked against it, and the well-equipped adventuring party was able to take it down quickly. They decided to cut up its meat for provisions before moving along the path. Using meld to stone, Giles became one with the rock wall containing the axe, and then came out of the stone form with the axe. An ingenious use of a spell slot, even if it meant he had burned a spell slot for just some normal axe. Some way further up the road, the party happened upon a small yet intimidating bridge across a chasm. Heads on spikes were all around the portcullis leading to the windswept bridge ahead. Intimidating stone vultures peered down at the party as they approached the portcullis, which rose on its own as a green flame ignited when the party approached. The party turned to Giles to see if there was any magic to dispel, but he found nothing, and so the party carefully pushed onward. As the party walked across the bridge, visibility became very low. When suddenly, as they had approached the halfway point, the air cleared somewhat, revealing Rahadin. He chuckled, safely assuming that the party did not expect to see him there. He was, in fact, very correct, as the party additionally could not remember who the hell he was. Upon being reminded that he was Strahd's chambermaid or something, honestly, who cares, Mbappe asked why he had come to meet the party here when he had a warm home to stay in. He angrily responded that one could ask the party the same question. The party quickly crafted a lie about a rare ingredient they needed for a recipe with Morgantha, but Rahadin stopped them, saying that he knew that was not the case. Both he and the party knew that this was the only way to the temple. He would give them but one warning: turn back. Mbappe told Rahadin to look out behind him, and with that, he threw an axe at him. But the wind picked it up, and it flew harmlessly off the side of the bridge. Also, Rahadin had not turned away to look behind him at all. Mbappe said that he was welcome. Rahadin simply said one more time to the party to turn back, as they only courted disaster. Seeing no way past him, the party realized that they would have to go through him, and so Rahadin called upon the defenses of the bridge to come to his aid.
You've activated my trap.
Bitch, this is my trap.
What we're living in, let me tell ya. Futures made of virtual insanity now always seem to be governed by this love we have for useless twisting of that new technology. Oh, now there is no sound, but we all live underground.
You will not enjoy this. This will not be over quickly.
Doggo! It's okay. I'll res you!
You fools! You've stopped nothing.
To the town of our free rode a stranger one fine day. Hardly spoke to folks around him, didn't have too much to say. No one dared to ask his business, no one dared to make a slip. The stranger there among them had a big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip. It was early in the morning when he rode into the town.
Oh, shit.
Texas ready, not cleared leather for a bullet fairly ripped. And the ranger's aim was deadly with the big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip. Big iron, big iron. When he tried to match the ranger with the big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip.
Atto, Mbappe, and Giles collected to assess what had just happened. It seemed that despite his assertion that nothing had changed, the saga of Rahadin, the man who had initially lured them to this cursed land, had at last come to an end. But at what cost? Mace Windu had been bisected and lost with Rahadin's corpse. And more importantly, Doggo had been taken by the roc to who knew where. But all hope was not lost. The party was still headed to the Amber Temple, and Atto sensed that Doggo was alive. Their course of action was clear. They had no choice but to proceed up the mountain, facing its trials. As the party trudged up the mountain path, Atto continued to sense that Doggo was raiding, Roy's raster to rave rim. Re was ragging. Roque all rop now. The party also opened up a letter that they had picked up as they crossed the bridge. It was a letter from Rahadin. It was a shame, the party thought, that Rahadin couldn't have survived to tell them the contents of the letter himself. Inside the envelope, to the party's horror, was a wedding invitation addressed to the party. In the chaos of the Wacky fight and following events, the party had almost forgotten that Irina was now in Strahd's clutches. Mbappe noted that the date mentioned on the letter was just in 3 days' time. The party decided that they would have to find a way to get back from the Amber Temple quickly. Maybe the roc, but they would cross that bridge when they came to it. Honestly, in the meantime, Strahd deserves some props for being able to put a whole wedding together on such short notice. Passing along a nearby ridge, the party noticed many rock gouges that had no doubt been left by Sangzor, the giant goat. The party briefly recalled a conversation with Oromir, the village elder, which happened off camera, in which he specifically warned the party about this goat, so it wasn't a name they all just collectively pulled out of their butts. As the party traveled, a thick snow began to fall. Hearing demonic bleating coming from up ahead, the party hoped, to no one in particular, that a fight wouldn't ensue because Atto was about a quarter of a person without Doggo, and Giles was also rather light on spells at the moment. Mbappe was fine. He was ready to punch a goat in the face. Before long, the party approached Sangzor. Desperately hoping for a way to avoid a fight, Giles offered Sangzor a chance to play fetch with the handle of Mace Windu. Surprisingly, it worked well, and he nestled up with it against the side of the mountain. Flying too close to the sun, Atto tried to pet Sangzor, which did not go well, and caused the giant goat to freak out, ramming the wall. Atto noticed a sign nearby that read, "Avalanche Zone," and the party suddenly heard a low rumbling noise. Running as fast as they could, the party continued up the mountain with the avalanche nipping at their heels. Somehow, despite their poor ability to run and jump, the avalanche mercifully moved just slightly slower. But before long, the Snow Maiden came for Mbappe to make him her snow husband and to take her snow virginity. And yes, before you ask, that was a direct quote from Dungeon Daddy. Atto, pausing as he was briefly tempted to save his friend, gave the avalanche enough time to catch and swallow him up as well. And despite a great effort, Giles was swallowed up too. The snow tumbled and flowed, eventually settling in place as the avalanche ended, the entire party having been buried. Fortunately, what they lacked in dexterity, Mbappe and Giles made up for in strength as they dug their ways out, and were able to free Atto with the help of the heat from the sun sword. Looking ahead, the party noticed a blizzard fast approaching. Needing desperately to recover and avoid yet another dangerous environmental hazard minigame, the party took refuge in the entryway of a nearby cave. The cave seemed to host many interesting twists and turns with the possibility for treasure. However, given the situation and the time limit both from Doggo and now the wedding, the party decided to rest just inside the entryway for no longer than was absolutely necessary to heal up and head back out. After resting up and allowing the blizzard to pass, the party continued up along the mountain path until they saw the rock circling overhead. They noticed a small footpath to the left and quickly climbed up it. Though the path led up to the direction of the nest, there was a small gap in the path over a pit of ice spikes that the party would have to cross. Jumping was not an option, and the rickety bridge over it offered little confidence in a safe, normal crossing. Atto attempted the cross with some supplies to make a more secure rope crossing, and he successfully made it across, before realizing he could have just turned into a raven and flown over. Oh well. Next up was Giles' turn to cross, as Mbappe and Atto held the ends of the bridge steady. Giles needed to confirm his dexterity to cross, but he pleaded with his god that was enough with testing his dexterity. He begged to be tested on anything else, his strength, his wisdom, literally anything but his dexterity. But alas, his pleas were met with only silence, and so Giles went tumbling with the rope bridge toward his doom into the pit of spikes below. Unfortunately, the sudden falling jerked Mbappe from his secure position, and he also began falling with Giles to a similar doom. Fortunately, thanks to Atto having secured the rope well, his end of the bridge held together, meaning Giles and Mbappe were not falling down into the pit directly, but rather were about to smash into the other side of the chasm, where they would bounce off and then fall down into the pit. And as the two slammed into the wall, the rope became loose in Atto's hand. He approached the edge of the chasm, afraid at what he might find. He could not stand to see all three of his friends captured or dead in one day. However, what had actually happened was that as the pair fell, in a rare moment of quick thinking, just as Giles was about to make contact with the far wall of the chasm, he cast his spell to meld into stone and harmlessly fused into the wall, leaving plenty of protrusions for Mbappe to climb to safety. Mbappe sustained minor injuries from slamming into the wall, but managed to hold on to the rope and climb up to safety, where he was shortly thereafter joined by Giles, who had returned from stone form and climbed up as well. Just a short trek further, the party had finally arrived at the nest of the roc, where the roc, hovering above its nest with Doggo in its talons, prepared to feed Doggo to its 3 baby rocs, chirping up and looking at their mommy to give them food. Instantly noticing the party, the roc dropped Doggo and blew a gust of wind, throwing the party off kilter and locking them in a vortex-like battle arena there at its nest. The 3 babies spilled out of the nest and began engaging the party members separately. Being the first to win his respective fight, Mbappe ran over to Doggo, who was laying limp nearby. As Mbappe booped his snoot, Doggo came to, seeing a friendly face smiling back at him.
Mbappe? What are you doing here?
Doggo, you are alive, but we must run.
Bro, rust right?
Angry at her meal being stolen, the roc turned to fight Mbappe and Doggo, but Mbappe stood in between the two, shouting,
Doggo is not on the menu.
At this time, the other 2 baby rocs were felled, and the mother let out a deafeningly loud shriek, attacking all party members wildly. With fireballs, bone attacks, sun sword slashes, and gunfire, the party unloaded as much damage as they could into the roc, but it seemed to not be affected as it continued to land devastating attacks on each party member. There seemed to be no clear way to defeat it other than to simply outlast it, but even that strategy was beginning to look hopeless as the roc seemingly shrugged off even the most devastating attacks. The roc angrily flapped its wings again, trying to blow the entire party off the mountain. Doggo was flung far, fortunately landing on Mbappe's face, being caught before falling off the mountain. Unfortunately, Giles had been living on borrowed time with all the dexterity checks recently, and it appeared that this was finally the bridge too far. He was blown away, tumbling across the battlefield and only catching himself on a jagged rock at the edge of the mountain. With the gusts not subsiding and his friends unable to help, Giles felt his strength slipping away. There was little option of what to do, as the rock was surely going to kill someone. He figured that given the urgency of the fight and the quickness with which his strength was failing him, now was not the time to hold back spell slots. And so, Giles took one last look at his friends as his grip slipped on the edge of the cliff and he began to fall. "Fly, you fools!" As he fell, he cast Banish, banishing the rock to the plane of hell. And so, knowing that he had at least one productive turn in recent memory, Giles cracked a smile as he fell to the ground below.